This is the Palin Update on SarahNet Radio. I'm Kevin Scholla.
Courage is your governor and your legislators standing strong in the face of death threats and thug tactics. Courage is you all standing there with them.
When Sarah Palin talks, people listen. And this past week, the governor spoke loud and clear in the form of a big endorsement. The governor throwing her support behind the lieutenant governor of Wisconsin, Rebecca Kleefisch, who is now facing a recall election. We will be joined today by Kleefisch. You won't want to miss this courageous American patriot. Plus, Sarah Palin had plenty to say about the ineptness of the Obama administration. We'll take a look at the governor's comments regarding Obama's arrogance when talking with another world leader. The president thought it was a private chat, but it was all caught on a hot mic. Also, a little recommendation for those Easter baskets from Governor Palin. We're so glad you've tuned in today, and we appreciate your support, the listeners, the most important part of SarahNet Radio. No presidential candidate has earned an official Palin endorsement yet, and many Palinistas hope that never happens. You know the scenario where there's still a candidate Palin after a brokered convention. Stay tuned on that one. But this past week, Sarah Palin did endorse a wonderful mom, wife, and Lieutenant Governor Rebecca Kleefisch of Wisconsin. Palin says the recall election in Wisconsin has thrown Kleefisch beyond the wolf pack, and she's also under the GOP establishment's bus because Kleefisch beat the hand-picked Republican candidate when she got elected. Palin says, quote, worse than seeing radical leftists attack and make things up about a conservative female opponent is when supporters on the right sit on their thumbs and act as if there's nothing they can do to help. Come on, unquote. That certainly sounds familiar. Palin goes on to say Kleefisch is setting an example for every other state in the union. Well, we couldn't agree more. Hopefully, Palin's words lead to a big Barracuda bounce. Let's get to our special guest. She is the Lieutenant Governor of Wisconsin, Rebecca Kleefisch. Thanks for joining us on the Palin Update on SarahNet Radio.
Thanks so much, Kevin.
Now, you are really a rising star in the GOP and a Mama Grizzly for sure. You've embraced that term, and this past week, the Mama Grizzly endorsed you and is giving you support as you continue to fight the left and fight for what is right. How does the Palin endorsement make you feel?
Well, it's an honor, of course, because here you have a woman who has inspired so many young moms across this country to stop yelling at the TV and actually get in the game. And that's what I have done. I was a former small business owner, a mom at home with my girls, and, you know, you just get frustrated at some point watching people wreck the state you love, the country you love, and you decide, I've had enough. I'm going to go do something to fight for my children's future.
Now, you are going through some real insanity there in the Badger State. Your governor, Scott Walker, faces a recall election, and now you do as well. What's going on here? This is the way things go now when you stand up for conservative principles, like backing a law that effectively ended collective bargaining powers for public workers. They try to throw you out. Is it me, or is there something wrong there?
Well, there is something wrong, Kevin, because the majority of voters elected us in fall of 2010 to a 4-year term. And the reason they chose us was because 2008 hit Wisconsin like a ton of bricks. This recession deeply affected us in the Midwest. Wisconsin has more manufacturers per capita than any other state in the country. And so this recession had our taxpayers in a pinch. They said, hey, listen, please do a budget without raising taxes on us. We cannot afford it. But the governor and I were facing a $3.6 billion with a B dollar budget deficit when we were sworn in. And so in order to do that, in order to do a budget without raising taxes, we needed to address not just the problems that we had laying on our desks, but also the cost drivers that were going to continue to hamper Wisconsin's growth in the future. So we took a look at what our public employees were dealing with. And we can't have a situation in Wisconsin. We can't have a situation anywhere where you got some people who are the haves and then your private sector folks who are the have-nots in a recession like this. And so what we did was ask our public employees to give 12.6% toward their health care, which is about the national average, 5.8% toward their pension, which is about half the national average. And I and the governor and even my husband, who is a member of our state assembly and therefore a state employee too, all made those same contributions. And we did ask for some concessions in collective bargaining because that was fiscal to us. Kevin, collective bargaining was costing taxpayers in the state a ton of money because when we were under the previous administration, you had collective bargaining in a taxpayer pinch. They weren't bidding out for health insurance in school districts, for example. Now, for school districts to go out and get the best deal on health insurance is saving tens of millions of dollars per district. Overall, our state and local governments have saved $848 million. That's not even school districts counted there. There's a tidal wave of savings across our state. Our schools are still producing the best educated workforce in this country, and we are tremendously proud of the strides we have made. We are at the lowest unemployment rate that we have had since December of 2008. And we have terrific news on our tax front, too, because for the first time in years, the schools portion of our tax bill has actually gone down. We have good news all over the place in Wisconsin, and despite it, we're facing a recall.
If a liberal law were passed fair and square in any state, could you imagine a recall? I mean, isn't there something behind this as well because of what the law that was passed is?
Yeah, you're right. And I know what you're getting at there. You know, it is a lot of out-of-state interest. The big public union bosses who see this as a battle of power, the battle of money, because one of the things that we changed was saying, well, gosh, you know, we're going to give our workers some rights back. We're going to give them the opportunity to choose whether they want to be in the union. We're not going to force anyone to do anything. This is America. And so when the unions realized that they weren't going to have the state forcing people to join the union and forcing people to put their dues into a pot that was largely going to fund Democrat campaigns, they panicked. They got angry, and they spent their winter collecting signatures to get the governor and I back on the ballot. Our Government Accountability Board certified that they had enough signatures. We will be going back on the ballot. We will be facing a recall, and so we will need support from all across this country because we're the canary in the coal mine, and we are sounding the alarm that if it can happen in Wisconsin, it can happen anywhere across the country.
We are so fortunate to have public servants like yourself, like Governor Palin. How do we expect good people to run for office if they see potential recalls and nonsense for their efforts?
That's the problem here, Kevin, because if we go down in this recall, if they really funnel $80 million in special interest out of into Wisconsin in order to defeat us and our efforts to grab at prosperity for the families and future generations of the state. If they can do that, then there is going to be a chilling effect across this country that you wouldn't believe. Politicians of all political stripes, Democrats, Republicans, Libertarians, I don't care what party you represent, there are going to be people who take a look before they make a decision and say, gosh, if I do this, if I make this bold move, if I have courage here, if I stand up for myself and the taxpayers of my state, will I be recalled? Now, the governor and I don't have a fear of that. We're governing for the next generation, not the next election. But there are people out there who will think twice. And that loss of political courage is something that we just cannot stand in the state, in this country. And that's why I ask folks to stand with us in Wisconsin tonight. And so if you'd be so kind as to visit my website, RebeccaForReal.com, I need help. I need help to fight my opponent who has already declared a candidacy against me. He's the head of the State Firefighters Union. Already the International Brotherhood of Firefighters has said, they filed something with our Government Accountability Board declaring that they are going to pour money into this race. We can't afford to have our good Governor Scott Walker go into battle every day against big special interests without a lieutenant governor to back him up. In fact, to have a lieutenant governor of the opposite party who instead would fight him tooth and nail every step of the way. We just can't have it.
Yeah, and the people of Wisconsin, that's who would suffer in a situation like that. You make a great point, though. We're talking about good people not electing to even run for office, but I like the point that you made that even those that are elected, they could be less inclined to think big, to paraphrase Newt Gingrich, and just push papers because they fear anything substantial would have a backlash. That's unbelievable. How have you and Governor Walker dealt with the protests and added security and all that jazz?
Well, I think it's a situation where if you want to lead, you lead for all of Wisconsin. And so we've kept our eye on the prize. The prize being 250,000 new jobs in Wisconsin, new private sector jobs, because we believe the private sector creates jobs and not government, in 4 years. That's what we want to see, and that's what we have kept our focus on. Now, the opponents, the critics, the naysayers, they're trying to distract us from that. But that's what they want. And so every time we see protesters coalesce around a new angry topic, write protest signs, bang drums, scream through megaphones, those are our opportunities to continue to keep our noses to the grindstone, to work even harder to help the people of our state. Jobs is what we need right now, not protests. In order to create jobs in the state, we need to all start pulling in the same direction, because we're not talking about Republican jobs here or Democrat jobs. We're talking about Wisconsin jobs. And as a country, that's what we need to do too. We need to keep our eye on the prize. We need to stay focused on what is important. And the only war we are in Wisconsin is the war on unemployment. We must stay focused, and the governor and I have.
I almost compare this to the situation President Bush was in 2001. 9/11 hits out of the blue, turns his presidency upside down. Suddenly he had to deal with very unforeseen circumstances and change the whole course. Here, you're just trying to do your job and govern, and now you have to deal with a recall. You've never been one to back down from your positions on issues. Has that prepared you a bit for this, to have that spine of steel that Governor Palin often refers to?
Oh, absolutely. There is no doubt. I'm used to kind of scrapping my way through tough battles. I was the first one voted off the ballot in my state Republican Party convention when I ran, and yet I ended up beating all of the other opponents in a 5-way primary by 22 points. I'm a hard worker. I'm a scrapper. I'm a cancer survivor. I'm a mom. I'm a former small business owner. I'm not afraid of a fight as long as I'm fighting for something I believe in. And I believe in providing the brightest future we possibly can for our children. I have 2 little girls I'm raising at home. And I, and the governor, saw danger coming down the path. The danger is the cost drivers, if left unchecked in this state, that would bankrupt our kids' futures. And if you see danger coming toward your kids, it is your obligation, not just as a good leader, but as a good parent, to prevent that danger from reaching your little ones. And we're not just in charge of making sure that we're protecting our own kids. We've got a state full of kids we've got to protect from that danger of unchecked spending and kicking the can down the road. That's why we had to address our problems head on, and that's why we did.
Palin supporters have a history of enthusiastically supporting candidates that Governor Palin endorses, so I hope that this is the case here. One more time, you mentioned it earlier. How can folks in Wisconsin and outside of Wisconsin volunteer and contribute?
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity, Kevin. It's RebeccaForReal.com, and that enthusiasm can be funneled into the state of Wisconsin and can be felt statewide. And, if you don't have an extra $5 to give, boy, we'll take your prayers here in Wisconsin, because we need to make sure that we are on the forefront of this economic recovery. And, the Midwest is a pivotal region for the presidential election as well. Momentum in Wisconsin, a very purple state, is going to mean momentum to make Obama a one-term president.
And how is your health?
Oh, it's fine. The funny thing is I went through chemo while we were going through those protests.
Right.
So it made it quite an interesting year last year, but I'll tell you what, I think this administration has more guts than all of our opponents combined, and I've only got half a colon.
Well, you are really an inspiration.
That's a colon cancer joke. See, I can tell them.
There you go. You're right. Well, you never know. We can't tell any jokes anymore. You know that from the liberal media. But listen.
Well, I can joke about myself.
You can. Someone will get you on it, right? Of course. Listen, you're really an inspiration to so many on so many levels. A common sense conservative who people can look up to for so many reasons. I appreciate you being here. And listen, we are proof that Packers fans and Bears fans can get along on the big issues.
We are proof of that, Kevin. I mean, and if Packers fans and Bear fans can get along over politics, then really there's nothing we can't accomplish as a country, right?
That is it. No doubt about it. The Lieutenant Governor of Wisconsin, Rebecca Kleefisch, thank you so much.
Absolutely, and go Pack.
Oh, see, do I edit that part out? I guess I'll leave it in.
No, you leave that in. Bye, Kevin.
Rebecca Kleefisch, the Lieutenant Governor of Wisconsin. Please, folks, head over to RebeccaForReal.com and do your part. That's Rebecca, FORREAL.com. Packers fans, Bears fans, everyone, let's make sure this top-notch fighter continues to be in a position to fight for all of us. Governor Palin perhaps puts it best. As goes Wisconsin, so goes America. So this is a huge election. We need to make our voices heard loud and clear. Now, on to the how cocky and arrogant can you get file. This past week, President Obama met with Russia's president, and Obama thought his mic was off when he delivered this gem. Quote, "This is my last election. After my election, I have more flexibility," unquote. Sarah Palin says this should be a warning to voters that President Obama will have more flexibility to weaken us if he's reelected in November. Palin says consider the state of our national defense under a president who whispers to a foreign power that he needs even more flexibility to weaken us further. Unreal. Easter's on its way, and Governor Palin has a recommendation for the grown-up baskets along all the candy. Palin is promoting Todd Starnes' book, Dispatches from Bitter America, a gun-toting, chicken-eating, son of a Baptist's culture war stories. Starnes writes about how the government is turning traditional holidays into politically correct secular celebrations, complete with renaming the White House's Easter egg hunt to a spring egg hunt instead. If you are sick of the insanity, pick up Starnes' new book and know we're not alone, and it's still A-OK to shout Happy Easter with plenty of pride, and of course, you can eat a lot of peeps, too. Well, that'll just about do it for this edition of the Palin Update on SarahNet Radio. Visit SarahNetRadio.net for continuing coverage of Governor Palin. Also, follow us on Twitter at SarahNet Radio. And we're now on Facebook, so please like SarahNet Radio on Facebook. And if you want to stick it to the left, pick up one of our new SarahNet Radio bumper stickers. Just email us, send your name and address, and we will send you one of our great-looking new stickers. Go to SarahNetRadio.net and click on Free SarahNet Radio bumper sticker. I want to thank everyone here at SarahNet Radio. Thanks to Wisconsin Lieutenant Governor Rebecca Kleefisch. And thank you for listening today. Please be sure to join us again next time for another edition of the Palin Update. Happy Easter, happy Passover. I'm Kevin Scholla. Have a pleasant day.